Welcome to Hope Talks. I'm Dr. Charles Montorio-Archer, President and CEO at One Hope United. Hope Talks are a conversation between industry experts and thought leaders on issues pertaining to protecting children, stabilizing families, and sustaining communities. Today, our guest will be April Janney, the President and CEO at Illinois Action for Children. And our topic today will be advocating for affordable childcare and education. Welcome, April.
Thank you, Charles, for the invitation to speak on Hope Talks. I'm excited about this opportunity to share information about myself, as well as Illinois Action for Children. As you stated.
I'm also so excited to have you here as well. I think that the work that you're doing and the work that we're doing at One Hope United is so important to ensuring that quality care and education is given to children.
Yeah, as you stated, I just recently been named the President and CEO of Illinois Action for Children as of February 1st. This is a dynamic organization, and I'm very excited to be a part of this team.
I'm excited to have you there as well. I've been working with your other team members, your other staff on some issues prior, and I'm just glad to see you there. So why don't you tell me a little bit about how you came to Illinois Action for Children, and then also what are some of your key strategic priorities while you're there?
Okay. Personally, I've been dedicated to working with children in Chicago and Illinois, really throughout the country, to try to foster outcomes, positive outcomes for them for over now 35 years. It's hard to say that as a servant leader. Prior to coming to Illinois Action for Children and this outstanding team that I'm really proud to be a part of. My career started out as teaching preschool and special ed. I also worked for a time in a team leadership program, and many of my career years have been with Boys and Girls Clubs, both in the city of Chicago and with the National Organization of America. The last 11 years, I've served children, families, and communities through my work here at Illinois Action for Children in a variety of leadership positions. And so I'm very excited again to be a part of the team. I was thinking about this. We were founded in 1969, and at a time that America and the foundations of families or the fabrics of families were changing a bit because women were getting more out of the home to work. Mm-hmm. And some by choice, but mostly because of need related to the poverty impact on their families and themselves. And our founder, Sylvia Cotton, and her colleagues recognized this change and asked one simple question that's been leading us all these years now, 50 plus years. What about the children? What about the children? And I think that's something that has attracted me to Illinois Action for Children 11 years ago, because I've always been focused on supporting children. And so we're working in a lot of areas right now. Some of our focus is around equity and quality care for all children. Of course, looking at policy and funding related to that. The shortage in talent that's going on with the teachers. And then choice, parent choice. Mm-hmm. I think those are some of the key areas that we've been looking at and being focused on these past years.
You know, when you talk about being a teacher first and now sitting in the seat that you're in, I have worked as a direct care professional 25 years ago, which I think informs my ability to lead differently at One Hope United. How has being a teacher been able to inform your work and your advocacy overall?
For me, I like to say I focus on my training that I got as a special ed teacher. You know, when you go into special ed, they teach you that everybody has abilities. They may be different and you go at them in different ways. You kind of work with the people and the children where they are. And I've kind of used that approach in my leadership as well as my partnering with folks. I believe that it takes people at all different levels to support what we're trying to do, and that we have to look at everybody as an individual and their individual needs to address those things. So when we're often talking about family and family needs, I've gotten very encouraged about the fact that we've included those voices at the table more often now, as opposed to just dictating to them or just creating for them what we think they need. And so having their voice at the table helps us to create that response that will best suit them and their families.
I started my career when I told you I was a direct care worker. And for a really long time, I worked with children with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We ran early intervention programs. So I know what it takes to do the things that you were doing back then. One other thing that, you heard me say in the opening about, stabilizing and sustaining family, how important is the dialogue and the communication with parents in the work that you do now, especially because you talked about in '69, there was a shift of women coming out of the house to work, and that meant education had to be done differently. And I think now, over the last couple of years, we've seen a shift in age of the parent. How does that play a role in how education and advocacy works?
I think as it relates to advocacy, our founder, as well as Maria and all of us now, we know that parents were and continue to be the strongest advocates for their children. They know their children, they know their families and what the needs are. And so it's been, the organization was founded on that premise, and public policy has been a big issue, a big focus for us, but it was around engaging those families and those communities to be a voice for their needs and their rights. And so I think we believe and continue to believe that parents are the strongest voice and strongest advocate for their families.
I know that you and Illinois Action for Children was a big part of the advocacy around the child care restoration grants and some of those other things. How important has it been in order to sustain child care? And do you think that these grants and opportunities will continue for a period of time as we come out the pandemic?
Well, it's definitely our hope that they will continue for a period of time, but in the initial early part of the pandemic rolling out, those resources were lifesavers for some of the providers and also for those parents, because many of the providers closed down because of fear of the pandemic, and the cost to open back up, the support to open back up and be able to get the PPE that was needed and have the daily cleaning, ongoing cleaning, even though we know that our child care providers were good at that, it was doubling and tripling the cost. And it initially, even access to some of those things, you couldn't go in the store and get but one item. One item would not take them anywhere when they're serving their children. So I think getting that funding and being able to work through the child care resource and referral agencies and INCRA to be able to kind of order those supplies for them. And we created an online store so they can go through the CCR&Rs to get those supplies that they need. We were able to give them up to 3 weeks at a time so they can get that information. But I think the big support was that we were able to help through those restoration funds, able to cover the cost of them maintaining their staff. Yeah. Even if they weren't able to have everybody in at the same time, because earlier on, it was so many children per site, but you didn't want those organizations or those locations losing their staff for when we did need to reopen. So being able to continue to pay their salaries and support their operations for reopening, I think for parents, it was major, especially initially the essential workers who had to go to work, the grocery store clerks and the doctors and nurses and the maintenance people that had to go to work. They didn't have any place to take their children. Mm-hmm. And so those funds allowed us to be able to get providers to open up and support those families.
We, as an organization, that we operate early learning and child development centers as well. And we were really in this discussion with some of the team having a conversation about third shift childcare and weekend childcare, because you understand, as your point, essential workers don't have the flexibility not to show up for work. In your experience and in your projecting for the future, do you think that we will continue to have a hybrid model of education for younger children?
I think, as I said earlier, one of our points of focus is about parents having choice to quality care. And so that's one of the things we bring up a lot even including family, friend, and neighbor care as part of that choice, making sure we try to build quality there and ensure that quality is there, because we know there's also the on-time, employment. It may be that I'm off today, but tomorrow I got to come in and I only get an hour's notice to come in. Mm-hmm. And so though centers are great, they may not be able to address that kind of need. Mm-hmm. And so we're pushing for this as we start to look at this early childhood system, that we include all of the system from family, friend, and neighbor care to kindergarten and kindergarten education. And so that parents will be able to make the best choice that address the needs that they have. And so, yeah, that's one of the areas that we continue to push for, that family, friend, and neighbor care is included in that sector review.
So I know you're watching everything nationally and also locally. So my last question to you is, what gives you hope?
Wow. I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about 1969 and what was going on when Sylvia started it. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about all the race riots and the young folks out protesting, and Black men getting killed by police officers, and the fight for equal education. And then looking at today, and that same kind of thing was going on. And so I thought about, you work on this, but what actually keeps me motivated about working in this field and gives me hope is the fact that in all the chaos, there's still opportunity. And we need to focus on the opportunity that we can get out of that chaos. And I started thinking about, okay, in 69, there was a man walking on the moon. Mm-hmm. There was Woodstock. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, we had to go to Harlem to have ours, but there was Woodstock. I was thinking, as a young person, there was Michael Jackson and Jackson 5, mm-hmm. on television. So today, as I reflected, I see that is the Black Lives Matter movement that is pointing to the things that we need to continue to do. We have a vice president, the first Black or woman of color is the vice president of the United States. And we are fortunate to have a governor who is focused and committed to investment in early learning. So what gives me hope is that in all the chaos, there's opportunity. What gives me hope is that there seems to be a synergy for us working together as a state with all the entities at the table and diversifying those voices so that we have parents and private and public sector at the table. We have practitioners, we have, professionals, but we're all at the table helping to make those decisions and to make the system better. So I think for me, the chaos to hope gives me, chaos to opportunity gives me hope.
I love the answer. I think about, in order to get to the light, you have to go through the darkness. And 69 might have been the worst of all things, but we have come a really long way. And there are people like yourself, along with your team at Illinois Action for Children and One Hope, who are really trying to push the opportunity and remain optimistic. So I definitely thank you for being here with me today. And I hope you're welcome to come back whenever you want to.
I love it. Thank you for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to share information. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. So thank you everybody for joining this episode of Hope Talk. If you have not had the opportunity to follow us, take a look at what we do at onehopeunited.org. Check out all of our Instagram and social media outlets, as well as this video will be posted on our YouTube channel. So until next time, I hope you find hope on a daily basis.